So in January 2022, parts of the Eastern Cape, especially the Buffalo City metro area, was ravaged by devastating flood, leaving destruction in its wake, particularly in low-lying areas and informal settlements. Families were left destitute, their lives upended as they lost everything in the torrent floods. Despite promises from government officials to provide housing and support them, 2 years later, many of these families find themselves still trapped in the dire conditions. Newzroom Africa was there monitoring what's happening there, beginning closely to look at the plight of these people who have been affected by the floods. Today, our reporter Sipha Kema follows up on those promises. Sipha, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. So the promises were made, and we remember all of those promises being made by government officials, but the lives of those people that were affected by the floods haven't changed.
Absolutely true, Aldrin. I mean, where I am right now is in Duncan Village, and this was one of the places that was hit the most and heavily affected. I mean, you can still see right behind me, we do still see some informal structures. An informal settlement still is here, and some of them have actually moved on and built literally right on the river, not just the river banks or the low-lying areas, but on the actual river. Now, there were promises that were made in 2022, and I just want us to start off by revisiting what the Premier of the Eastern Cape had promised to do for the people that were living here in Duncan Village.
It's one of those cases that should have been avoided long time ago. It's not happening for the first time. It has happened almost 10, 15 years ago, and people were told to be moved out of here, and then houses were built somewhere. But again, in terms of allocation of houses, the problem happens. Government has been building houses. These are priorities we should not allow, but when we remove these people here, some come build where people are, and this is wrong. It has been told, it has been said that it is wrong. We should be able to look at this quite seriously.
Now, the Premier says government has been building houses, but it was found that some of those houses, the people who are eligible to receive housing, who were told that they've got houses, those houses were actually occupied illegally. Now, I do have one of the community members, Mzukisi Ndangandanga, who was heavily affected by what took place in 2022, Aldrin. I mean, he lost everything. Everything of his was swept away with the torrent floods. Mzukisi, masiqale tata niselapha namhlanje kodwa kwakuthiwa nizawususwa kodwa niselapha.
Ewe selapha sisi nangona kwakuthiwa sizawususwa nje only few abantu abemkayo abinoba 5 households ezemkayo kule ndawo sikuyo.
Xa usithi bamkile ke ngoku uthi babheke phi bazihambele okanye basuswe ngurhulumente, because nanithenjisiwe uba nizayofakwa kwizindlu zenu ezinaninzelwe zona.
Into yenziwayo urhulumente wathatha imoto wayizisa apha, wathatha ezi households ndithetha ngazo wazisa kwi-temporary structures emtsotso ukutsho oko.
Nina ke ngoku izindlu iphelele phi into yenu, ngoba niselapha uba kungaphinda kuflade nisesebungozini?
Sisesemlindweni nangoku kwakuthiwe kuzabuyelwa kuthi, and phaa emtsotso kugcwele up until kubekho izipeyisi ezikhoyo, so ngokwangoku ke sisalindile.
All right, thank you. You can hear Aldrin from Sugisi. I just want to quickly cross over to the other side just to show you how bad this situation has gotten actually from the last time. And you can just imagine, look at some of these structures here, literally on the river, not just the riverbanks. The last one that you're seeing in the frame here, you can see it's literally tipped over. So should any form of flooding occur again, as the Premier had indicated that this has happened more than once, you know, the people here will be in trouble. It was promised that, I remember Minister Kubai had actually promised, the Minister of Human Settlements had actually made a promise to these residents, saying that she understands that they were given houses, and there's proof that most of them were actually allocated houses. But it seems as though some fraudulent processes took place and those houses were handed over to other people, and that's a situation that needs to be rectified. But 2 years later, water. There's still no word of that, and you can see it still remains the same. Now, Aldrin, later on we're going to go to another area in Mdantsane where promises were made and broken, where the situation is actually worse than it is here. And in those floods, 2 people had actually lost their lives as a result of having informal structures in low-lying areas.
Yeah, here's the other concern of the visuals that you just showed us, and I don't know if you'll be able to do that again, is that looking at the road that you're standing on, there's a small little curb there, so you don't have an embankment that would prevent any car from crashing into those shacks.
No embankment whatsoever, no space. Literally, if there's one car parked outside, you would find that, cars use a one-way. They have to, give each other right of way. Just to show you this bank and curb that you're talking about here, this way you see there's actually a bridge here. Now, this is one of the bridges that had actually affected most of these structures here, right? So there was no embankment that was supporting. Now, they tried to, build some form of blockage, but from what we hear from the community is that this river still seeps and leaks. Water is still flowing through. These bricks have not stopped the river from flowing through. And as you mentioned, no kind of stoppage or blockage should a car really come down and crash into the structures. It can topple over the structures or right into the riverbank.
Thank you so much for that report, and as Sipha has indicated, we'll get more details around the promises that have been made and how far government has gone with those promises. Really appreciate your time.